Thank you for watching the World Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook with your hosts Edward McQueen and April Garner.
Wow.
Good evening, Brother Edward. How are you?
Fine, ma'am. What about you?
I am doing just fine. It's been it's a Tuesday, but I feel like it's Monday.
I was bragging about this day. And
Can you hear me? Is there a delay? Can you hear me? Is there a delay? It's not. We're talking on top of each other. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. I'm
okay. All right. Yeah. You say you were bragging about this day?
Oh, yeah. We get some information and that people can take and digest and make decisions upon themselves. And hopefully, the guests who are scheduled to come on, we can do just that. So, April, I think you had the reins on this thing, so I'll let you move forward with that. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Well, first of all, we are very excited to have a very full room tonight as far as the show is concerned. And we are focusing on Domestic Violence Awareness Month and the fact that, this is a very prevalent issue in our society that we don't talk about enough, and mainly because there are certain stigmas attached to it. There's some, taboo issues that particularly resonate even within the African-American community. And we're hoping that our guest tonight will shed some light on, why domestic violence should be a concern, who's actually impacted by domestic violence. I think that there's also some stereotypical thoughts about that. And we're going to find that actually the definition as we know it may not be exactly what it is. And so hopefully we will be able to educate a lot of our viewers on what this really is all about, and also give some great and resourceful information should they need help or know someone who does need help. So I'm going to bring on Gwendolyn Reed. Gwen, how are you this evening?
I'm doing good today. How are you doing?
We're all doing well. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. And we certainly do appreciate you being with us. Now, you've been with us when we were on radio, but in a different capacity. Yeah. And
before.
Yes, we have. We've had her on this on the show before when we were in the radio station. Right. And but tonight you're actually talking to us in a different capacity because of a cause that is near and dear to your heart. So why don't we start with you introducing yourself to our viewers, and then we'll get into it tonight as far as why you're here.
Hi, my name is Gwendolyn Reed. I am the founder and director of Ebony's Hope Domestic Violence Outreach Program. My program helps women, children, and men who's been affected by domestic violence.
Absolutely. So, Gwen, as we know, you have a very personal story that is related to this very topic tonight. And I imagine it's probably your inspiration behind all the work that you do around this particular subject. And so why don't we start by, first of all, letting our audience know, our viewers know that there may be some sensitive material that may be shared tonight, some instances and situations that might be triggering to some audience members. So we wanted to put that broadcast warning out to all of you this evening. If you feel that this topic is a little bit too heavy for you, we totally understand. But at the same time, it bears to reason that there's a discussion that needs to happen and some awareness that needs to be gained about this very topic. So we appreciate all of you, and we'll be as sensitive as possible and as compassionate as possible as we talk about domestic violence. And I think Ms. Gwen is going to be able to help us with that. So Gwen, why don't you just kind of open it up by talking about why this particular subject is so important to you?
Domestic violence is very important to me, and bringing awareness to it and about the resources in my community, because my sister was 28 years old, Ebony, when she was shot and killed in the Conway bingo. At the time of Ebony's death, we didn't know of any resources. Ebony, like a lot of other domestic violence victims, don't seek help. They don't. Their family don't know, so they continue to do what they do, to do what they have done in pattern. After Ebony's death, we knew that there were resources out there. And the reason I started Ebony's Hope, because I believe that my sister should still be here. And I want to make sure that the next family that is faced with domestic violence, that they know that they're not alone out here. There's help out here. And if you reach out, we will do, myself and several other organizations will make sure that you have a safety plan that you can leave and live. And you won't end up like Ebony.
Okay. Well, first of all, we are certainly, sharing your loss, and applaud you for having the strength and the courage to actually move forward, to be able to talk about it and share your lived experience with everyone. Because I think sometimes people, they know the information is out there, but until you actually hear a survivor story or you hear from the families of victims, it doesn't really resonate as something that they should really pay attention to. And so Domestic Violence Awareness Month, I understand it was launched nationwide in October of 1987. And, at that time, I'm sure that the data pointed to the fact that there was an issue that needed, the raising of awareness. And also, there were probably not as many organizations or individuals working on this particular issue, and hopefully that has changed, over time. I mean, back in 1987, of course, we're talking about more than 30 years ago. So what kind of strides have you seen as far as, what organizations and even individuals are doing to bring awareness to domestic violence?
What I've seen is that it has not been taboo. Especially in the African-American family. We were taught that what's happening in this house stays in this house. And a lot of time it kills us. We are taught that we suspect things and then we be like, that's not my business. So there is a lot of more people that is shining a light on domestic violence, because it is something that covers all economical, social backgrounds, and knows no boundaries. And so in order to eliminate or decrease the number of tragedy that we've had, we've brought more educational programs. We have programs like some of the speakers here that they're bringing education and bringing awareness and letting the community know that there's no longer a shame tactic, and we have to save lives. Especially here in South Carolina, we have legislation that passed in 2016 because South Carolina ranked in the top 10 for 2 years straight. This is the first time in 22 years that we in South Carolina have made it to the 11th in the nation for domestic violence.
Wow.
The year that my sister was killed, 2013, 2010, and 2012, we were in the top 3 in the country in Horry County for domestic violence fatalities. And so it has to be a change, because I think all our mission is to save life, to preserve life, and to educate people. And when there's a problem, there has to be some awareness and education. And we just have to, as a community, as a people, shine a light on what is killing our community.
So, as with a lot of things that are about our state, is it no surprise to you that it's taken so long for South Carolina to at least fall out of the top 10, but more importantly, that there isn't more that's, being done to deal with this issue in the way that it needs to be dealt with? What have you learned about the things that are happening to combat this issue here in South Carolina?
I've learned, South Carolina has more animal shelters than they have women's shelters for battered women, and we've been in the top 20, and that remains to be seen. We do have some legislation that has been out there, like I just spoke about, that we just passed in 2016. But there is so much more that we can do. There's so much more awareness that we need to do. Ebony Hope is about bridging the resources in the community, because the community don't know about it. We have a lot of rural areas that are suffering from domestic violence. We have so much gap in knowledge, and it doesn't matter if we have the resources, the community don't know about it. And that's what we do at Ebony Hope. We bring the resources in the community together. This is what's here. This is how we're going to fix it. This is what you can do. Different things like that. Literally, I would have to say that my knowledge has changed. One, because prior to Ebony's death, like so many other people, I was ignorant to domestic violence. You would have never told me that someone would have walked up on one of my mom's kids and had killed her in a public place like he did, had slaughtered her like he did. Sorry for being so graphic, but in that moment, in that time when my mom screamed in that big old parking lot, I constantly hear it in my head. I hear that scream of her asking God, I never asked you to do anything but raise these kids. It's 15 of us. You would have, I'm still floored. I'm still shocked 9 years later that, that Ebony is deceased and we still are running in shame when we're losing people daily, minute by minute. We're losing women, children, men to domestic violence because we are constantly being like we were ignorant. We were very ignorant. And I will say this for our family. And I speak from our family standpoint of view, not to take up too much time, is that we were, because we are a big family, we tend to laugh and joke. You know what I'm saying? Like, nah, he not doing that to you, Ebony. That's not happening. He know better. And you get that thing that he wouldn't try me like that, but he did. Because I personally, I can't speak for everybody, but I had suspicions. But I with myself saying, no, he wouldn't do that. We as myself, I think that we joked about something that was serious. And you always see things 20/20 hindsight. There were signs. We should have done, at least that's my grief. Because I questioned it. I was like, something's not right. But I let somebody talk me out of what I felt. And I believe that, had I said, Ebony, is he hitting you? Is he doing which she did tell me prior to her death that he did hit her because he had kidnapped and beat her 10 days prior. But there were signs before that he wouldn't try us, or we jinxed her, which is prevalent in the African American community. Girl, I know you're not letting that guy cut your tail. I know he's not doing that. But we don't see the psychological changes in somebody. And then the compound that I'm going to come to everybody in my family, and they're going to pick fun at me. I think we really have to take it serious. We can't say, well, why don't you just leave? There's so much I learned, Miss April, after the fact, because I truly was ignorant to any resources. I can only say I turned a blind eye to what his behaviors.
Well, as I'm listening to you, what I hear and feel coming from you, a lot of pain and a lot of guilt for what you did not know and what you were not able to detect. And I think that, you should extend yourself some grace, mainly because a lot of times we just don't know. We don't know what the signs are. We don't know the definitions. We don't know what's in front of us. And so you can only deal with what you have full knowledge of, or at least partial knowledge of. And a lot of times people, are in denial. So they're even kind of cloaking some of the things that we would need to see in order to really know that they're in trouble. But what I can say is that, if redemption for you is doing this work, then it's definitely a powerful work. And it's something that the community needs to be aware of. They need to see it. They need to understand it, because, one thing you and I talked about is the fact that, people probably have different definitions of what domestic violence is and who it affects. And what we know tonight is that those definitions may be a little off. They may be skewed. And so, what I think we need to make people aware of is what domestic violence, really is. Is it all about someone being battered? Is it verbal abuse? Is it, what is it? What does it look like? And I know that you have a host of guests who are with us tonight. If there's a guest that you would like for me to bring onto the screen now who can help us with that, please let me know, cue me, and I will bring that person on to help us with the definitions and to shed some light on that part. So
if you would bring
Miss Rhonda Green.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So Miss Rhonda, how are you this evening?
Good evening, April, Edward, and Gwendolyn. Good to see you, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, good to see you as well. Thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
So as I was saying to Gwen, domestic violence, as we try to define it and understand what it is and who it impacts. Can you help us to understand more about that, what it is and what it isn't?
So domestic violence can be physical abuse, mental, emotional, and financial abuse. It can be something as simple as someone intimidating you or exercising control over you in any kind of way. That is a form of abuse. It is not acceptable on any level, whether it's child abuse or what we're talking about tonight with the intimate partner violence. And that happens between men and women. It happens between um, same-sex partners as well. So it happens behind closed doors, and a lot of times we do not see the signs. We do not even think for a moment that that person is involved in that type of situation. You just never know what's going on behind closed doors. It is important for us all to make sure we recognize the signs, to make sure we don't turn a blind eye, and to make sure if we have some intuition or that something is wrong, trust your guts. I am a two-time survivor, and both times, most people did not know what was going on. The first situation happened in college, and the only reason someone knew something was up is because the young lady who lived in my dorm on the other side, she heard the commotion through the walls one day, and she came over later to ask me if I was okay. So she heard something and she spoke up. However, I was not in a place where where I didn't feel like I was strong enough to leave. My emotions were involved, and I just tried to save him in any way I can and just hope for the best. And because you are embarrassed, you find yourself in an abusive relationship, you try to keep things to yourself. And as Gwendolyn said earlier, in our community, the Black community, we have this culture of make it work, fix it. What goes on in this house stays in this house. But when it comes to violence, and that's a message that has often come from the pulpit in churches as well. People want to hold their homes together. And I understand, the value of family, but you also have to understand God did not make us punching bags. He did not make us to be abused. And the thing about it is, I was told later, if your father, your mother doesn't treat you that way, what gives anyone the right to treat you that way? Because I don't come from a background where abuse was prevalent. So I had to reevaluate my own thinking about relationships and where I am. So I think your question was originally, define it. And so that's how abuse happens. That's how it happened to me. And then because I did not heal completely and I did not know my own self-worth, and because I did not confide in others, that all played into me being in that situation a second time with another male early in my 20s.
And so let's take just a step back so that the audience can learn more about who you are, Miss Rhonda. You spoke so eloquently and helped us with that definition, or at least to understand more about the terms associated with domestic violence and the people who are impacted. But based on your bio, you're an author, an entrepreneur, and a mentor. So we appreciate you sharing your journey and tell us a little bit about your book, 7 Ways to Free Your Mind After Abuse. Was this the catalyst for that book and the other books that you penned?
Yes. What I discovered after leaving those relationships, that everyone was giving you a pat on the back. So glad you're out of that. You deserve better. We're so glad you finally opened your eyes and left. But after I left, no one was there to say, okay, now that you're out of that abusive relationship, make sure you're doing everything to break that cycle within, to get that abusive relationship out of you. Abuse happens in cycles. Like you have the honeymoon phase when everything's fine, and then you go into the arguments, and then you kind of rekindle the feeling. But when you get out of a relationship like that, you're so used to that cycle because we all know you form habits when you do something repetitively. And so those habits that formed in my mind, those things that were going on in my heart, in my spirit, in my soul, in every area of my life, financially especially, it devastated me. There's usually not anyone afterwards to say, okay, now let me help you move on. There's maybe a temporary shelter you can go to, But what about when you move on and it's 6 months down the road, but you are still behaving as if that relationship is still controlling you? The person is not physically there, so you need to free your mind. That's why I wrote the book, and it is a free ebook on my website. So anyone who needs that resource, I take you through 7 steps to free your mind from abuse, and I give you very practical steps. Things as simple as, if that person's still calling you, change their name in your phone to "Do not disturb my peace." I have no future with you. Anything that gives you the message you need so you can move on with your life. If you have kids with that person, I understand you may not be able to cut them off or block them, just get a new phone number. So I also give tips on, helping your children heal, especially if they saw that, and also how to make sure, if it's the child's father, you create a time capsule with pictures so that they can still remember their father in a loving way. But as for you, you can't be around him. So I give practical tips on, coordinating supervised visitation, things like that, so that the abused, male or female, can remain safe even though they have to co-parent. I give tips so that the abused person can move on and truly be free, because if your mind is still there in that situation, you're not able to live your life to its fullest. And I really want women to move on and be happy. And I don't want it to take 20 years to do that, because it took me a long time to come to terms with what happened to me. It took me a long time to bounce back financially, emotionally, mentally. So the physical scars were gone, but my book deals with all the emotional things and the cycles you go through after you're out of that relationship.
Mm-hmm. And I can only imagine that, you know, as as survivors deal with the scars, the trauma, the things that could be triggering in their daily lives. Is there ever really a time when, or has there been a time when you felt like, you know what, I'm finally over this? Or is this something that you think actually sticks with you, and you just learn how to cope with it?
You can get over it. You can completely heal from abuse. And I know that there are people who are listening, maybe they are family, loved ones of someone who actually died from. And I want you to know that you can still, that person can never be replaced. But what we can do is help you do things like Miss Gwendolyn is doing, to bring awareness, to let other people know there's a way out. And yes, you can fully recover. You can get your life back together. And my whole goal is to help survivors do exactly that, to get their lives back together so that they can move on.
Mm-hmm. So I'm showing everyone your website, and it's rhondagreen.com. And she has a free resource, a free ebook, Brother Edward, to help survivors. And I think that this is very important as people are searching for resources and ways to deal with what they are going through. And so, Rhonda, thank you so much for sharing that information with us tonight. And
So
I
what
also, go ahead, Brother.
can I
Mm-hmm.
ask a question? Yeah, what is
Yeah.
the date on when was this book authored? When was it published?
I published that about 2 years ago. And that's why I said I don't want someone to waste many, many years, because I was in my 20s when I was in those relationships. And so it took me a long, long, long time, because I just wanted to sweep it under the rug and be gone, and move on with my life. But I realized I was self-sabotaging. I was still, even in relationships and jobs and everything that I did, there was that fear there. There was that cloud over my head. And it was just time to really free my mind. So that's why I want people to, get out of that situation safely, plan your escape, and then work on you. And that's what I
So
help women.
interesting. Yeah, interestingly, you picked the number 7. You say there were 7 ways. So I'm here thinking that it must have been more than 7.
Yeah, there are definitely more things that you can do. But
Yeah.
the basics, the 7 basic principles that I put in that book, are practical things that women can do to make sure they get their finances back together, get their emotions back together, to build their confidence. All those things. Like, one tip I give in the book is to write out your affirmations paste it on your mirror in your bathroom. Read that. Speak to yourself. Speak life over your own self. Speak all the things that you want in your life. Make sure you're telling yourself that, because for so many years, you've been listening to someone tell you you are nothing, you are worthless, you can't be anything without me. That gets ingrained in your brain. So we go through a whole process of making sure we get that out of us. We want to speak life, as I said, over yourself, because if everybody else believes in you, but you don't, it's not going to work. So there are definitely more than 7 ways, but those are the 7 steps that basically, if every woman goes through that, it will put her on the right path. And then we can also do, I have a mentorship where a woman can continue to do one-on-ones with me. And we go through deeper steps, and I even teach them other things. Like for me, like I said, finances was a big thing. So I teach them other things like starting your own business, investing, budgeting, things of that nature. So yeah, it's more than, it goes deeper than the 7 steps, but this is a start. And that book is free. Like they can just click on the top banner, says free ebook, and read it. You don't have to give me your email. I know some people want an email address to get the free ebook. No, you just click on that and it will pop up in another tab for you to read. So you can remain anonymous and get that book.
Well, that is awesome. Thank you. Yes, thank you so much, Rhonda. We really appreciate it. And I might bring you back on the screen, so just stick around, okay?
Yes. Thank you.
All right, awesome. All right. And so, Ms. Gwen, as you were listening to Rhonda, and of course, she was one of the persons that you recommended for the show tonight. I'm sure that there are things that she said that you have shared with the public before, even through the work that you do with Ebony's Hope. And, why is it important for people to really understand that, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and they don't have to feel like, it's a hopeless or situation or something that they will never be able to get over. In your words, what's one way that you can actually instill this in people or motivate them to seek a resource like what Ms. Green offers, or even some of the other guests that we have on the show tonight? You're muted.
One of the first things I would say, if I could even say it to my sister right now, is that you have value, you have purpose, and you are loved, and you're worth fighting for. So that's the first thing that I would tell anything, because I think, to reiterate what Rhonda says, oftentimes that they lose their sense of self, their sense of value. I think it's imperative that we restore that as a community, as a person, as an individual. And, take the shame off of domestic violence. That's the biggest thing. I think we have to just as Rhonda said, I didn't come from where I day-to-day life. I saw violence, but I didn't see domestic violence in my everyday life with my parents, nor did Ebony. So for me, it's just that, the sense of value, the sense of healing self, and rebuilding that individual, that person in, because I believe when we build one, we heal the community. Essential that we heal the community through healing that one person and providing them the resources that, like Rhonda offer, or Miss Nash offer, or Mr. Kenneth offer. There's, we have to start rebuilding the infrastructure of our community, and we do that one woman, one man, one child at a time.
Right. And speaking of Mr. Kenneth, I'm going to bring him on the screen, because I think that people need to understand that, as we think about domestic violence issues and the things that we're always hearing about, it isn't just something that happens to women. It also happens to, as you said, to males, to children, as Rhonda stated, in various forms. And so, Kenneth Joyner, welcome to the show tonight. We really do appreciate having you here. And Ms. Gwen touched upon something that made me want to bring you onto the screen, and that is the family dynamic. And so if you will share with the audience who you are, and then let's get into your story.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, first of all, for having me. Just being here with all these powerful stories and women and people just sharing their heart. I just want to send that out and just say thank you, because it really is an issue that I think, as you stated earlier, it's so serious and has so many lasting effects on us. But we do try to sweep it under the rug, especially in our community. I am the founder and director of Boys with a Purpose. We are a nonprofit mentoring organization that mentors young boys in an after-school program. We've been doing that now, going on 6 years at the College of Charleston. I'm a former educator, taught in South Carolina at Moultrie and Lang at Meminger Elementary as well. I work with schools and teachers, principals, and kids all around the country, from Alaska all the way to California. But dear to my heart is mentoring young men. I grew up in a domestic violence home, and without my father, and that left a profound effect on me because I did not see a lot of positive male role models, and my mother bounced between, different men who were continually abusing her. And that's one of the things that I talked about in my book as well. It's called Without a Father, and you can get that on Amazon. But more importantly, the effects that domestic violence left on me, and as these young ladies have talked about, the effects that they leave on the women, of the repeat cycle, that you choose a different man, but you choose the same man and same relationship because you're not whole. That affects your parenting. It affects how you think about and value yourself. It affects how you think about and value your children, in the season of life that you're in. And so my mother went through, I mean, almost 25 years of just abuse. Again, just not believing in herself and not seeing her own value and her own self-worth. And I know that impacted me as well. As a young man, I had, just all of these hopes and dreams, but when I see my mother being beaten to within an inch of her life every day, it does leave this effect on you that maybe it's just not going to work out for you. Maybe it's not going to turn around for you, or whatever the case may be. Um, but I was, my great grandparents really, you know, cared enough to step in, and I went to live with my great grandmother later on, and that really kind of turned around my whole entire existence to this very day. And so that really, put me on a path where I just wanted to make sure that I didn't end up as that kind of a man. I didn't want to be
Right.
an abuser. I didn't want to be someone who manipulated, and I was physically abused as well. So not just as my mother, my stepfather would turn that wrath on me as well. And so just all of those things that you grow up with, and why my father left, and all of those things just really left a profound effect on me. And as I got older, I noticed that, especially being in the classroom, that there were a lot of young people, male and female, who were dealing with some of those same issues. Right, some of my kids, they were living in abusive homes, and because I lived in an abusive home, I could recognize it. Right, I could see it. I could see parents when they show up, what was really happening, what was really going on. And so that just led me to, again, want to do more, especially, for our young men. And so Boys with a Purpose, I did a lot of mentoring when I was in the Baltimore area, in my church. And then when we came to South Carolina, in 2007, back to school, got my degree. And in 2016 is when we started Boys with a Purpose. So um, that has just really been, one of the things that I kind of lay my hat on. And we want to build strong young men. We want to teach them how to treat young ladies.
Mm-hmm.
This week we're working on how to make decisions with our young men, because a lot of young people don't know how to make decisions. What does that look like for a young man, across the board? And just, again, teaching them to respect first themselves, then others, obviously authority, and of course, our young ladies as well. And so really honing down on these skills, which are not being taught in school, um, have to, really, help them really see their value and their self-worth as a young man. You know, changing their lives, character lessons, things we do again in the community. I want them serving. We did a campaign with Kendra Scott Jewelry Store early October, so that they are in the community, serving the community, helping, doing different things to really be able to teach them the value of what it means to be a young man. And Boys with a Purpose is just that. Like, you do have a purpose here, right? You're not just here just because. And I want every young man to kind of reach for that. That, hey man, I'm here because I'm valuable. I'm here because there's something that, you know, I'm set to do and be. And so we just try to keep them focused. And you know, we've had Boeing is one of our partners, and we partner with the Charlotte Hornets. So we go to a lot of NBA games. Of course, they love that. But getting them out of their environment was a key for me. A lot of our young men who live in Charleston had never been to the beach, but they've also never been out of their immediate surrounding. And that's really what changed my life, in that I got exposed later on in life to various places, you know, different opportunities, which said and gave me hope that there could be a different life for me, and that I could make life better for others.
First of all, we commend you for the work that you're doing, because mentoring is so powerful and important in these days and times, especially, and all too often. And I know Gwen and Brother Edward will co-sign this. We hear throughout the community that, you know, parents, especially single moms who are trying to raise sons, are having problems finding mentors for their children. And
Absolutely.
especially the boys, you know. And so, you know, to have an organization like this that's doing the work, and but to also, you know, intentionally address the trauma induced situations that these kids are going through, and the fact that, yeah, these childhood traumas will travel with them and cause them to have unhealthy relationships that are totally a product of what they, you know, were exposed to. And it may be something that's just ingrained in them because of what they were, you know, what they always saw or what they always heard or whatever the case is. And they could be fighting it tooth and nail to the core, but can't get over that hump of letting
Absolutely.
go of that childhood trauma. So yeah, this work is very important. And again, you know, we are focusing on domestic violence tonight, but you know, this is the evidence that if you don't deal with these types of situations early on, then it can become a domestic violence type situation later on. And so, you know, as you work through your childhood traumas and things that you had to deal with, Kenneth, you know, what was the one thing, or maybe what were the things that made you know that you could rise above what was happening to you?
One of the things that really, you know, it was, you know, I got to go back to my great grandmother again. She instilled in me that regardless of your environment, and that's something that I talk to young people about today, regardless of your environment, regardless of your circumstances and situation, um, you don't have to be defined by those things, and you can rise above those things. I tell young people that when you're born, you look like your parents, right? But when you die, you're going to look like your decisions.
Mm,
It's the decisions that we make that are really going to shape our lives. And so we
It's
all know
interesting.
somebody,
mhm,
we all know somebody that has made it out of a difficult situation. We all know that, right? We come from the hood, started from the bottom, now we're here,
mhm,
and who come from, you know, just various backgrounds, but they've made it and they've been successful, quote unquote, in this world. But it's because they made different decisions, right? Every athlete knows a person who is better than them that didn't make it because of the decisions that they made. And so I tried to make sure that the decisions that I was making growing up in DC in a drug infested neighborhood and poverty really lined up with my goals that I said I wanted to do. I wanted to make it out. And that was, you know, just super, super important. So I just push decisions, which again, why this week we're talking about decisions. and how to make decisions. Because when you don't know how to make decisions, and we've seen it with our young people particularly, they make them on emotion, they make them on fear. Even us as adults, we make them on doubt, we make them on worry, we make them decisions based on the fact that we may not have the resources, as Miss Green talked about. You
Mm-hmm.
know, say, you know what, we should stay in the relationship and we should just try to figure it out and work it out. And all of those things pushed me. It pushed me to be a better husband. I've been married 26 years now. It pushed me to be a better father with my own daughter, who's a nurse, and she's just doing some great things in her life. And so all of those things. But I would definitely say it was my grandparents. I mean, my great grandparents. It was my aunts. Um, Here's my dynamic. My grandfather had 7 girls. My mother was the oldest of 7 girls, and I was the first male child.
Wow.
So I was spoiled. But everything I learned about women, I learned from my aunts.
Mm-hmm.
How to treat them, how to respect them, how to honor them, how to love them, how to nurture and take care of them, what they truly need. I watched each and every one of them go through difficult relationships, um, and I learned from that. And I learned from that. So, and it always pushes me and always, um, allows me to just look back and think like, hey man, if I did it, then I can like pass that knowledge on, to someone else. And lastly, I'll say 100% it was God. It was God. I could not have navigated to the place where I am without God really being a anchor for me, and my family, for my thought process, for my own decision making, um, because there have been so many times when I could have gone the other way. I know drug dealers. I've been around, people who commit heinous crimes, and
Mm-hmm.
so just because of, again, God kind of kept me out of certain situations. One day I didn't go to that party. One day I wasn't in that car. And so, beyond a shadow of a doubt, I know His hand and His favor is on my life, and so He 100% gets the credit.
Mm-hmm.
So I see
Oh,
that as very interesting, very, very, very interesting background, Brother Kenneth. And what would a couple of things I just would like for you to elaborate on, and that is one is the community support. Do you find it adequate that you're getting from the community, or uh,
I think
inadequate?
what happens is I am getting great support from certain portions of the community. 100%. We definitely want to expand our reach and go into more schools. We were supposed to be working this year with Charleston County School District, but again, they had a lot going on, and so we just stayed where we were. We're working with Memminger Elementary School. I taught at Memminger, so Memminger is always going to have a special place, and we always get the majority of our young men from Memminger. But I would love to do work with Burke High School, Simmons, Pinckney, places where I know really, really need us, especially in that downtown area. Um, but yeah, I think what happens is, just like anything, once people really see the effects of what we're doing, everybody gonna get on board, right? Nobody
Right, right.
wants to. When I was growing
What's
up, everybody remembers those rotary phones, right?
yes.
Yeah, right.
oh, you remember?
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so what happens, what I tell people is that, now we have these devices, and nobody would go back to those rotary phones because these would do more. And the more we get to do as an organization, that's when people are going to say, "Oh, wow, that's definitely needed." But I want to do the work now before, the hoopla comes, so people can know that we're in this for the long haul, 100%.
Right, right. But I really appreciate that the elaboration of your background and what you all are doing with community support. But my last thing on is that uh, what have you explored with in terms of collaborating with other organizations of your nature? For example, like the 100 Black Men. That's the first thing that comes to my mind.
Yeah.
Uh, I can see
And
the strength there in that kind of unity and that kind of synergy, if you
mhm.
will.
no, we would love to be able to do that. And I know in Charleston they had it at one time, but then it fell off. And so I don't know if they're bringing it back now, but we would love to do that. We would love to do more partnerships with churches. We would love to do, we have a partnership with Boeing where they bring in engineers once a week to help our young men. I'm doing a lot of grant writing, of course. I'm trying to get that and keep that funding going.
Right.
A lot of it, been out of pocket for the last 4 years or whatever the case may be. But I just believe in the work so desperately that if I do have to come out of my pocket, or if I, whatever I got to do to save a young man from dropping out of school and putting his life on a path that he may not be able to get it off of, I'm just willing to do, and so we would love to be able to do that, because that's our biggest challenge. I just was contacted this week by Nexton Elementary School, and they want to do a Boys with a Purpose. And we just need more mentors. We need more men, strong men, to be able to stand in the gap and do this work consistently. Every child, every woman, every man needs consistency and commitment to make anything work.
Absolutely.
And we've been consistent and we've been committed. And that's why we've been doing this work now 6 years plus.
Thanks so much, man, for that information.
Thank you.
That helped me a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Joyner. Kenneth, should I call you Mr. Joyner or call you Kenneth?
No, you call me Kenneth. That's
right.
my government name you got on the screen.
All right. Well, we definitely appreciate you tonight. And again, stick around. We may have another question or two before the end of the show. Okay.
Absolutely.
You're welcome. So, Gwen, there's a host of guests. We've had another guest join us as Kenneth was speaking. And I know that we have someone who is with the Georgetown County Sheriff's Office. And that's definitely another side of domestic violence that we want to touch on tonight, just to talk about, the kind of the criminal aspects and things that this particular person witnesses from the standpoint of the work that she does. But also, Dr. Nash can dig more deeply into some things from, like a counseling standpoint and based on the work that she does. And then we also have a few survivors who are here to, a few more survivors who are here to talk about their stories. But before we do all of that, I think, Brother Edward, we need to take just a little short break to give everybody a chance to kind of breathe and get a little sip of water. Okay. Yeah. And again, we appreciate having all of our guests here tonight as we talk about working to end the silence that hides violence. It's Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and we have our special guest, Gwendolyn Reed and company, talking to us about domestic violence. And of course, we will focus on her event at the end of the show, Ebony's Hope, the 9th annual event, if I'm not mistaken, Ms. Gwen, and talk a little bit more about that as we come back from the commercial break.
Absolutely.
Okay, Brother
Oh,
Edward,
amen.
we are back. And
Yes,
again,
we
we
are.
are bringing, we have a spotlight tonight on Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and our special guest, Gwen Reed and company. And I say in company because she was definitely instrumental in helping to bring all of these guests on tonight who are sharing their lived experiences. And some of them have actually turned those lived experiences into wonderful organizations and resources for people who are dealing with or coping with issues surrounding domestic violence. And so, Brother Edward, it's been pretty heavy tonight, but sometimes we have to have these heavy conversations and bring this kind of information to the public. And so it's great to hear that, Kenneth Joyner, for example, is doing some wonderful things with his mentoring program for young boys. And
Yeah, I'm really excited
Rhonda
about
Green,
that one. I'm really
yeah,
excited
that's
about that
awesome.
one.
That is
Yeah.
awesome. And Rhonda Green, she's turned her experiences into books that are great for people and even free.
Absolutely.
There's an ebook that's free
Man,
as far as the help
the
is
talent.
concerned.
I'm looking at the talent too of what we
Yeah.
have out here.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. And so, what I want to do now is kind of shift the focus a little bit, and we're going to bring on special guest Tiffany Kinloch, and she is with the Georgetown County Sheriff's Office. Hi, Tiffany. How are you this evening?
Hi.
All
Thank you for
right.
having me.
Yes, thank you for being here with us tonight. And first, before we get started, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
My name is Tiffany Kinloch. I'm born and raised in Georgetown, South Carolina. I've been in law enforcement going on 17 years with the Georgetown County Sheriff Department as a patrol deputy, as a school resource officer, and now currently the community officer for Georgetown County.
Okay. So, of course, you bring a different perspective to tonight's broadcast from the standpoint of the work that you do in law enforcement. And I don't even know how to segue into that other than to, just ask you what it is that you see and experience, and, what are some of the things that you all do from a law enforcement standpoint to even deal with domestic violence issues?
Well, as you know, each case is definitely different. For me, when I became a law enforcement officer, initially I wanted to be a lawyer, and things changed. But
Never too late.
right, never too
Yeah,
late.
never too late.
But my mom was a domestic violence survivor. So growing up, my mom and my sibling both were not passed away, and my father, he's passed away also. But the laws were different back then. Very, very different. And I could recall at a young age of 6 and witnessing on a regular basis my dad being intoxicated and abusing my mom physically, verbally. And then to one instant, he kind of went a little bit too far and used a pistol in the process to threaten to take her life, and also used that pistol as a weapon on my brother, who was just trying to get my mom free. And from that whole experience, my mom was able to call law enforcement, and this would have been my first interaction with law enforcement at that time. And I was very observant, everything that they needed to know as far as what went on, the weapon that was used, how my mom got away. Me at the age of 6, I told that story. And I can recall my grandmother telling me, no, don't say this, don't say that, go in the room. But I already said it to the police officer. So when my father wasn't arrested, it kind of changed things for me. And the abuse continued. And from that incident, me and my brother learned how to distract my father so that my mom could actually get away, because at that point when the police officers came, they wouldn't do anything. Even though as a child, I would tell them what happened. My mom, of course, would not, but they got the story.
Mm-hmm.
So growing up, that affected me my whole life. So when I decided to become a police officer, and once I learned that the laws has changed, and whether or not the victim wanted to say something, or if there was just a witness that could give the account of the abuse, that was enough to arrest the abuser. So at that point, once I learned that, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm all for it. I'm going to take that step. So that has been my journey in doing in joining law enforcement, and I've come into several cases where we in law enforcement is called that I went on scene, located the victim, saw the bruises, and of course the victim didn't want to make a statement or whatever, but because there was a family member that saw what happened, that called, because we had a witness, we were able to take that information and get a warrant obtained for that person. So I'm glad to see that things have changed from 20 years ago to now. The different elements where we can put the accuser behind bars or present the warrant to the judge with the evidence. Because sometimes the victim is just not ready for that step. So somebody has to be that voice. And that's what I learned, in dealing with it with my mom. Somebody has to be that voice. So going throughout, once I go to the scene, I canvass the scene because the victim may not be there yet. But somebody has to be. So that's one thing that we learn in training is document. We learn how to treat the victim as such and to understand the different levels and elements of domestic violence, the degrees of domestic violence, what exactly is it domestic violence, so that we can share that information, because you got some victims that don't realize that they're in a domestic violence situation.
Right.
So that's just some of the things that our training affords us to do now in this day and age.
And we were talking about that earlier before you joined the broadcast. That like you said, some people or victims don't even know that they are in a domestic violence situation, and we've attempted to kind of create some context around it, and maybe even a definition, and learn from Ms. Green what domestic violence is and what it looks like. That it's verbal, it's physical, it's financial, it's a lot of different things. And it's amazing that your experiences led you to this particular career field so that you could possibly make a difference and shift the needle, so that people will, I guess you'll have a better opportunity to, like you said, deal with the aggressor from the standpoint of just understanding that some people don't know their rights. They don't know what they're able to do to get out of those types of situations. So, I don't know if you know any statistics or not, but statistically, what are we looking at when it comes down to domestic violence situations? And if it's Horry, Georgetown County, that's even better as far as understanding what's going on in our area.
Well, I did have some notes, and the one thing that stood out to me the most is basically that just yearly 4 million women are beaten, raped, or physically abused by their partners. That stood out to me more than anything, because because of the silence surrounded around domestic violence, like you don't really know these things. It's like taboo in our community. Like Gwendolyn Reed, she's my first cousin, so that was something that we went through with Ebony in our family, and like she said, we joke with things, and we're not realizing that, wait a minute, this is going on.
Right.
Even though I was brought up around it, I know that it wasn't going to happen to me or my daughter, because again, this is a different day, it's a different time. So at no point did I would ever think that this is going on now, because there is resources, but again, it's just still not enough. It's not enough, and sometimes it's especially law enforcement officers. Sometimes you're not exposed to things, so you don't have that sensitivity that you should have, that compassion. And sometimes the victim tends to feel ashamed, and they close up, they shut themselves off. So what I learned is approach everything as if it were me, because could have been.
That's deep.
And just give people a chance to breathe, walk them through the process, explain it, let them know that there is help, there is a resolve, there is a resolution at the end. This does not have to be a life or forever. And I don't have a problem with sharing my personal experiences because that they've gotten me to where I am now. And if my mom were here, she would say the same thing, that she learned later on, that I could have stopped this if I had known what was in place. If I had known that a judge could have stopped him from coming back. She was thinking that, okay, he's going to get out, he's going to come right back, the cycle is going to continue. And I just try to because it happens on both ends, male and female, let them know that it doesn't have to happen. It doesn't have to be a cycle. And just that kind of thing is really, really important to me in this day and age.
Okay,
Well,
okay, sorry.
no, go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
So, Ms. Kinloch, you also mentioned that you were victim. You were patrolman, right? At one point.
Yes, sir.
In police. Did you witness a significant amount of domestic abuse situations? Yes,
a lot, yes, sir.
A lot. Wow.
In Georgetown County, yes, sir.
Really. So, I'm not trying to be partial here, but there were, how many were men, approximately?
I can even speak on that today. We actually I got off at 5, and by that time there were 2 calls that came in where the men called because the females were being aggressive. There was pushing in both, taking the item, snatching a phone. There were actually 2 today, but doing my course on the road, I would say about 10% were actually men. And the reason that they were calling was because they didn't want to do this. And they said it like, I didn't want to react to this. And then you all came out because the men always go to jail. The men is always looked at as the aggressor. So I'm the one that called because of this. And I tell everybody, we deal on facts. We deal on facts of the case at the hand. That's the responsibility of law enforcement to get there and deal with the alleged violations. Gender does not matter. Just all facts of what's going on with the case. So, we make sure that that's known right off the jump. Any event or that I attend, anytime I make contact, I'm like, no, there's no gender bias. It goes both ways. If something's going on.
Do you find that it's increasing among men?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
For the past few years back, I'll use that as a trend.
Yes, and it's increasing. It's increasing because me being in law enforcement for almost 17 years, when I first started out, the men wasn't reporting it as much.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they weren't reporting it because and I was told it takes away from their masculinity. They didn't want to get on the phone. They didn't want to call the police on their significant other, because men want to be manly and they want to handle the situation. But then when they realize that this can turn into a life or death situation,
yeah,
I got to get on the phone. We got knives, we got guns in the house. I have to get on the phone. Okay. So that trend has changed, and like I said, just before I left work today, we had 2 calls. She's in here pushing me. She's trying to take my phone. So we do get those calls in.
All right.
And even though that sounds to some like, okay, it's just a push, it's aggression, we can't take anything lightly when it comes down to this. Yeah.
That leads to other things, I think.
That leads to other thing. We have to recognize the signs of abuse. It doesn't always mean something fatal. It could be something as snatching somebody's phone, taking something that can lead into something else in other situations.
Well, Tiffany, I guess for you, it's kind of bittersweet that your experiences have turned into your life's occupation, but at the same time, it sounds like you were taken through those experiences for a purpose. And so, we never know in the beginning why we're going through things, and then voila, it's revealed to us. And that's why I say it's never too late to become a lawyer. So thank you for sharing with us tonight, and for shedding light on what we're talking about from the standpoint of what you see from a law enforcement lens. And remain safe, and please stick around just in case we need to come back. I'm going to bring on now Danielle Richardson, and Danielle is going to speak with us for just a moment. Miss Gwen, of course, is so connected when it comes down to this network of people who are survivors. They're providing resources. They're sharing experiences. And this person that we're about to bring on, she is a domestic violence advocate after a tragic experience of witnessing the murder of her mother by her stepfather when she was a child. And so, Miss Danielle, welcome to the show tonight. We really do appreciate you coming on to share some of your experience, and also to talk a little bit about, why Domestic Violence Awareness Month is so important for so many. And I know we've heard a lot of stories tonight, and I don't think we can hear too many stories. We really need for it to sink in with people, and it may not be affecting them personally. For example, I'm not going through that kind of situation. Brother Elwood's not going through that kind of situation, but we may know someone who is, or we may suspect that someone is going through it. And so, and we never know what these situations will lead to. Which is why, we wanted to have a panel of people who were willing to share their lived experiences. So, Miss Danielle, if you will, just, kind of, give us a little glimpse into your life.
Well, hello, my name is Danielle Richardson. I am from Charleston, South Carolina. I am a child survivor of domestic violence. I actually did witness my mom being murdered by my little brother's dad. It was happening in June of 1991, and in that time and era, there was not too many resources out for domestic violence victims and families to be able to get support. So at that time, I doubt that my mom knew anywhere that she could be able to go get help. And back in those time in the African American communities, what goes on in your house stays in your house. So we were never permitted to be able to go and tell what was happening or what we was going through at the time. So a lot of the things that was happening to us was hidden a lot. So by the time family members and friends and authorities really found out exactly what was happening, it was kind of too late. My mom was with my brother's dad for about 13 years. She met him at 18 years old, and he was in his 30s then, and he killed her when she was 34. And the night was very, 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 very tragic. She was stabbed to death about 37 stab wounds. About 37 stab wounds of the last report that I know of. I'm the oldest out of me and my brothers. At the time, I was 14, going on 16. We had a 14-year-old, a 7 and 8-year-old at the time. The 7 and 8-year-old's dad is the ones who killed my mom, and from that point, it was really a tragic situation, because I can remember it just like it was yesterday. And what it did is it put a trauma on me and my brother's lives, to the point where we just didn't really know how to cope and how to deal with it, because at that time, domestic violence wasn't domestic violence. It was, your mom and dad fighting. You don't talk about it, or she died. It was swept underneath the rug in the family. So we never got like some treatment or counseling, or really to say, hey, like, even though you witnessed your mom being killed as a child, that you can be able to grow up and you can be able to be the best that you can be able to be. That was not case-wise. So we kind of just went about life as like, we're dealing with this. We're coping with this. But we never knew anybody else who had childhood trauma like this. And so it's even tonight, just listening to the other ladies and Mr. Joyner talk about their childhood experience with domestic violence, it's relieving for me because growing up past then, I didn't know anybody who had a mom that died. I didn't even know anybody who had a family member that was murdered. You know, so it wasn't like I could be able to find friends or outlet to somebody who can relate to see how I was doing it and understand the pain that I had, because you know a lot of times when people are you going through domestic violence, and I've heard it so many times with my mom, just leave, get up and leave. And even I had a conversation with my mom about 6 months prior to her being murdered. That's the mom. Why is it that you need to stay here? Like this, leave. Like this can check them out, and so we can be able to be living happily ever after and whatever. And her words was, "Well, you don't understand what love is. When you get older, you'll know and understand what love is." And then I strictly remember telling her, "Well, what if he do this the next time? What, you know, and something happens really bad?" And for a long time, you know, within 6 months later, he ended up murdering her. He ended up stabbing her to death. And so, for a long time, I held that guilt in because I felt like maybe I jinxed her, saying that maybe something might happen the next time, and then it did. But when she did put him out, and she said she was gonna say goodbye to him for the last time, and he wasn't gonna come back or whatever, I felt that she should have just kept that goodbye and not try to fill the void that she had before, and then where she'd be able to take him back. So me growing up and being an adult, I had to first learn how to have a spiritual grounding, where I joined church after I saw so many of my friends and family that was going through it, murders and different things. And I was like, okay, I can't explain this. I need, you know, because I had kids answering questions, and the depression and stuff was just really hard, you know, coming from having a childhood depression and turning into adulthood. You know, an unhealed child becomes a hurt adult, and that will be hurting other adults.
That's right.
And that's what I saw with my brothers, and then I saw that in me as well. So, me being the oldest and trying to figure out life, because if I was able to get to a certain place, then my brothers definitely would follow me. So I got into church. I got into, you know, and a lot of them, shout out to Ebenezer AME Church, my wonderful church family. They was able to grab a hold of me and, you know, Daniel, we got you. We're going to take you to this next level and this next level. And so then I got to the point where I was able to walk into a mental health counseling and was able to get the mental health that I need to be able to say, or when I have flashbacks, this is what I do. If I have a panic attack, this is what I do. When the memories gets too heavy, this is how I was able to do it. And so what conclusion that I had, I say, well, I have to, you know, whatever I learned, I have to teach my brothers, because they're young Black men, and you know, they bigger and taller and stronger than me. So they are often intimidated, and they was in their own relationships, and they were struggling because they didn't know how to deal with women, because they saw their dad not deal with women correctly. And so I always have to put myself as an example to be able to make sure I get them to the right point. But what happened December of 2009, my brother, my youngest brother, which is the son of the man who killed my mom, he got into an argument with his roommate. And from that point on, he had mental flashbacks or something, and it went left, and he ended up killing his roommate in the same manner that he killed my mom. His dad killed my mom. And just going through all the court stuff and the the mental state that he was going through. He was just like kind of back at 8 years old again.
Right.
And so
That childhood trauma.
The childhood trauma, caused him to commit murders as an adult. And at that point, I was like, I gotta do something. I don't want to ever see any child ever go through what we've been through in our lifetime. I don't like to see it. I don't want to see mothers going through what we've been going through. My mother went through. And so what was laid on my heart to start an organization called Goodbye Abuse Ministries. And at Goodbye Abuse Ministries, what I do, I help women from my community, from pretty much all across the world. If you're ready to say goodbye to your abuser and to your abuse and the suffering, we want to be able to be there to be able to help you transcend to saying goodbye and mean it. And when you close that chapter, you're not coming back, because goodbye means goodbye forever. And I felt that if my mom had just stuck with her goodbye, that she probably would have still been here today. But every time that I help some women or children or family get through domestic violence situations, when they say goodbye, I'm on them. Like, oh, we're not going back. We're going to move forward. If you need counseling, I'll make sure that you get you some counseling. If you need food, you need housing, you need whatever it is to be able to help you get to the next level so you can say goodbye to abuse and never look back. That's our goal. And that's our mission, to be able to say goodbye to abuse. But one of the main things, I put it as in a ministry form, because I remember as a kid always praying. Every time they would fight, the only thing that I could do being in our room was pray. Because it was little, but a lot of times when we were smaller, we weren't strong enough to help her. We weren't strong enough to break up the fights. But what we could do was we could hold hands, we could pray, and if we was able to get out the house to be able to get help, that's what we did. And what I did, so anytime I work with women and families and even with men sometimes too, we're going to pray first. We're going to pray throughout the whole situation until we can get you back on your feet. Because what I have noticed a lot of times when we go to court with the families, we go to court with these women, when those court cases are closed and that victim advocate is closed, that case is closed, they're not there to say, okay, your abuser is locked up, he's gone away, now here you go back into this world and you got to start your life over again. A lot of people miss that, and a lot of people miss how the children reacting, how the children feel. And so my goal within my organization is to be able to help you get to the next level, where with prayer, my mission is to bring peace, love, and happiness back into our families. That's something I grew up always wanting. A lot of people, when they grow up, what do they want out of life? All I want is peace, love, and happiness. That I didn't have. And a lot of times people take that for granted in life. And so when I get families and they're distraught, and only for them you offer you to be able to be the person that you need to be on the next level, you got to have that peace, love, and that happiness. And I got to start with you. And so what I did, because there's so much I can't even pack in this segment about what we went through in domestic violence. So I wrote a book, and it's called God Heard My Cries, The Deliverance. When I said we've been crying a long time in our house with my stepdad and the abuse that my mom suffered. And when she died, we was to deliver her out of that situation. But it was not an easy task to be able to get to the point where we can love, we can be able to be able to be. And so I always tell people, God is listening. He hear your cries, and He's going to deliver you out of this situation. Just keep forward, stand fast, and believe in what God is saying. And to wrap it up with me, with when we come down, it's talking about South Carolina. We're at number 11 now, but we was in the time that my mom passed, she was in the ranking with number 1 in the state of South Carolina in domestic violence, and they've been number 1 in South Carolina in the men killing women for 20 years. In 2014, I did a domestic violence walk on Johns Island, and our state Post-Courier newspaper came in, interviewed me, and I was just telling them about the different things that was going on around the state in domestic violence, and that prompted those reporters to do an investigation. And with that investigation, they found out that the laws are so different inside South Carolina, because even in South Carolina back in the day, you could have beat your wife on the courthouse step and people would come and watch. And so now we worked hard. We went to, after the state meetings, to the Capitol and had so many meetings, and came, and when Nikki Haley, which was then our governor in 2014, she created the domestic violence reform. And then with that, we was able to get the laws changed in South Carolina, and now we have better laws and establishments for domestic violence victims.
Well, Danielle, first of all, your story is so very compelling, and I think it's left us all speechless. But it's again another testament to the fact that you've taken these experiences in your life and you've turned it into quite a biography of who you are and why you're inspired to do this particular type of work as far as being a domestic violence advocate. Not only have you written a book, and your life story was actually turned into an article that won a Pulitzer Prize award in journalism, but again, you founded a non-profit domestic violence organization. You are still continuing to do the work. You became a member of the Bradley campaign against gun violence after the Mother Emanuel Church shooting. Your bio is so extensive. It definitely lets us know that the spirit prevailed and it has shown you what your purpose is in this particular fight against domestic violence. And so you're to be commended for everything that you're doing and will continue to do. And your story is light for a lot of people, and it's a wonderful thing that you're able to pray, find love, and real love, and also extend forgiveness and find peace within yourself. And that's really what we want to make sure people understand about what's happening tonight. So thank you so much for sharing your story. And as you were talking about how your brothers were impacted by the domestic violence that was around you, I couldn't help but think, wow, if they had an organization like what Kenneth Joyner is doing, that might not have been the case, or some people who were able to mentor and take them through the situation, even though you all were living it every day. The moments when someone can at least hold your hand through a few minutes to let you know it's going to be all right, it's invaluable. Kenneth writes that your son was in his organization, and so and that's awesome. I mean, that's absolutely awesome. So this network that Gwen Reed has, and all the wonderful people she's brought on the show tonight, it's absolutely incredible, and we commend you for doing the work. And so thank you so much for sharing your story. And I know Brother Elwood always wants to know about community support. How can the community support you?
The community can support me by coming to my Facebook group. I have a Goodbye Abuse. I have my business page, and I also have Goodbye Abuse Facebook group, support group that's on Facebook. And watch out, I'll be coming on YouTube in just about a week or two with my Danny Rich Inspirations, where I'm going to also be hosting a live stream where we're going to be talking about things of to be self-love, self-peace, and self-happiness.
Mm-hmm. Well, awesome. So again, Facebook support group is Goodbye Abuse. And this is Danielle Richardson. Thank you so much for sharing your story, and just, let us know how we can support you as well through WCM Live and the World Community Magazine as well.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you so much. And so, Brother Edward, the last voice that we will hear from tonight is Dr. Deonza Nash, and I want to bring Dr. Nash on if she's ready. Dr. Nash, are you ready for the final minutes of this particular show? And definitely want to thank everyone who's been on the show tonight. I know you all have decided to stick around, and I really appreciate it. And I could see the head nods and everything in the background as you all were listening to the stories of others who came on. And so, Dr. Nash, if you can signal to me that you are ready and turn your video on, I'll bring you onto the screen, and then we can talk a little bit more about this from just the counseling standpoint. And so, Dr. Nash, welcome. We appreciate you waiting and being here.
Okay. Hello, I'm Dr. Nash, and I'm the CEO and founder of Women of Choice 2. And our mission is to empower our youth and women to discover that inner strength to make right decisions.
Absolutely. Now, Dr. Nash holds a doctoral degree in counseling, a Master of Arts in Education, a Bachelor of Science in Psychology and Biblical Studies, and an associate degree in psychology. She's also a certified personal life coach and a certified clinical trauma specialist individual. And so currently you're in school as well, getting your master's in clinical mental health counseling. That's a very impressive educational repertoire right there, Dr. Nash. And we're definitely fortunate to have you here tonight. Some of the things that have come out have been some very compelling topics, and just even thoughts and feelings that our guests have shared tonight. And I think Danielle said something that was pretty impactful, pretty amazing, which is she feels some relief knowing that there are others who are here tonight who had some type of a domestic violence situation or experience. And to me, it made me feel like she feels relief because she's not alone. And then also the other part of it, I had to write it down when she said her mother said, "You don't know what love is." And the fact that, the teachings of love were all wrapped in the idea that you're supposed to embrace love no matter how it comes to you, even if it's abusive. I'm sure that that's a type of trauma that is really hard for anybody to let go of in these days and times, and particularly women, because we see that a lot in within our female circles. But you've been listening to everything tonight, and just kind of give us your I guess a summation of what you want the audience to know about how all of these people have dealt with domestic violence, and also, what is there left to do? What can they do to continue to deal with it in positive ways?
Well, actually, they can start by building up their self-esteem and getting empowerment. A lot of times, going back to Danielle, when she said about her mother feeling, saying about love. First of all, I always tell young ladies, love is not supposed to hurt in any way. So many people, they get it confused, like, oh, he loves me. If he loves you, if he loved you, he wouldn't be beating you. He would, it wouldn't be an issue with him choking you out. It wouldn't be a issue at all with him putting, his hands on you at all. And they stop and they look at me, and amazed, like, and it's just that simple. It's just little simple stuff. If you get the correct education and get, telling the community, getting the word out there, like, wait a minute, love is not supposed to hurt. And then, wait a minute, where is your self-worth, your value? You're supposed to love yourself. And then there's a lot of people that have kids involved, and their kids is like, of course, with the issues with the young ladies, they're seeing that. And what do? They carry that trauma over. They carry that trauma with them all of their life until they come and get help. I'm an elder also. So sometimes I have to take off that elder hat, or take off that, that one hat, and say, okay, let's focus in and on this. Let's get to the root cause of what happened. Why are you allowing this to happen in this way, So the first thing I tell them, let's get to that root cause and let's start from there. And as sometimes they begin to write stuff down and they begin to weep, they begin to cry. And, I let them, get everything out. I let them vent. I let them, because we're supposed to be, of course, that listening ear. So when they come to me, like I said, I let them vent, I listen, and I let them know I'm here. Let's, breathe, take a step back, and they do that. They begin to breathe and they begin to let it out. They begin to say, well, I didn't know. Sometime when you're venting and letting stuff out, you see what you're actually in. Sometime when you don't have anyone to talk to, and you don't have anybody to surround you with love, and you're in a certain environment, it will begin to drag you down even more. So I let them know, wait a minute, let's surround yourself with positive things. What do you want to do? What do you want out of life? I just begin to ask them the question, and they begin to tell me what they want. And sometimes it's not that easy. They still go back and they'll say, well, he loves me, going back to that, but it's not really love. But that person have to actually see that for themselves. So we worked through it. I had one situation over 17 years ago where this young lady was doing very, very well, going to church. She had 2 kids, and her boyfriend, she broke up with her boyfriend, and he couldn't take it. So what did he do? He killed her, strangled her to death, which was so sad when I got the news. And it was Mother's Day weekend. And Tiffany might actually know exactly what I'm talking about. But it was so sad to know that she came through Women of Choice to get the help she wanted, and she was on the right road. But what did he do? He choked her out. And because of, drugs, he just couldn't handle the situation. So sometimes you get, that situation, that person in that situation where, they're trying to get out, and then it goes the opposite way, and it ends up so sad.
Yeah, and it's it is unfortunate. I know someone who was sharing with me an experience that she has in her neighborhood with a female neighbor who is going through some things, and it's an abusive situation. And instead of the female leaving the actual circumstance, she just goes through it, but yet she'll constantly go over to her neighbors to, like you said, to vent or to say whatever. And so the neighbor doesn't know how to deal with it, because she says, I don't know what to tell her beyond leave before it's too late to leave. And I think that when it comes down to people who are trying to support those who are going through domestic violence issues, sometimes that could be even traumatic for the person who might be trying to extend that advice, because it's like, what can I say beyond leave that will, make the light bulb come on and make this person understand that they, definitely can get out of the situation. But to your point, maybe they don't know that they can get out of the situation. They've probably been so broken down that they don't believe that there's any other situation to be in. And so, one question that came in from Miss Priscilla Fuller, who was commenting tonight as well, and thank you for watching, Miss Priscilla. What advice would you give to women who need more intensive treatment, or maybe even just more intensive advice? What will make the light bulb come on for these women, Dr. Nash?
Well, it all depends on that individual, how bad, they want to get out of that situation. Like I said, you have some people that, that actually want the help, and you actually have some people that want to protect. They want to protect that guy. They don't want him, to go to jail. I've seen that also. They don't want to call the police. So it all depends on that individual, how bad they want it. And help, I'm here to tell anyone, help is out there. Of course, like everybody said earlier, it could be more, but help is definitely out there. So please get help. If you know someone, sometime, like that's 10, 20, 30 years ago, where it was everybody kept silent when they saw it and didn't speak out. But now you can save someone's life. So I'm just saying, if you see something, speak up, say something. With the light bulb situation, all I do is pray. I pray on them. Going back to I'm an elder. So I pray that their light bulbs come on quick, soon, so they won't, their family will not have to bury them. So that's the advice I would just get out of that situation, and seek help immediately. And if you know someone, just try to convince them that, wait a minute, this is not the way to go. We, have known people that have died in this situation, and you don't want to be, leave kids. That's another situation when you're leaving kids traumatized because they have seen you in an abusive, situation, relationship. And it's, they're carrying all of this pain around until they come and get help from a trauma specialist or a counselor. That is so deeply rooted until it's not fun. Until it's not funny. And I always say the only person that can help them out of that situation is God himself. And Rhonda earlier, she said, people will say, well, you can't be healed. Yes, you can. You can be healed. You can be delivered from whatever situation that it is, and you can get help.
Well, I tell you, I'm sure it's an incredible work that you have to do. And the fact that you probably encounter this more often than I won't say expect to, but unfortunately then you expect to, and yet you still do the work. I mean, it does say a lot, and it takes a special kind of person to be able to counsel people through these issues, especially I want to kind of segue into the mental health aspect of it, because that is such a very critical issue right now, dealing with the mental health issues that are happening, and knowing that people are going through domestic violence, and they may think that they're just experiencing an emotional trauma, not really realizing that there's a mental piece to this, there's a spiritual piece to this. And so, as people come to you for help, how do you help them through the mental health piece of it, so that they can at least get through their next moments?
Well, like I said, it depends on that individual. Everybody, that comes through the door is they're different. They have to deal with different they're dealing with a different situation. So what I do is, I listen. That's the key thing. I listen to what they're going through at that time, and we build from there. Positive feedback, because sometimes with what they have been through with so much trauma, it affect them in the mind, and people don't understand that. It leaves them so traumatized that they start believing whatever they have been through, so to speak. Like, even today, I was in a class, and this young man, he spoke out, and he began to say, well, all of my life, my parents told me that I wasn't going to be anything, that I was angry. And he started believing that. So we have to, first of all, get to that, going back to that root cause, to say, wait a minute, what happened? What brought you to this, to this situation? What brought you here mentally? You understand? So we just go from there. We take it like a baby steps, not rushing in, hearing them out. And believe it or not, when I hear them out, or any other counselor hear them out of what they're going through, and you're taking notes, you're listening, and then when you begin to give them their feedback, begin to tell them back, what you just heard them say, I get a lot of breakdown, believe it or not, because they can't believe that I'm that person. I'm that person that's feeling this way. And now I know why. They figure it out themselves very quickly. Sometimes it's not as quick as others. I'm not going to sit here and story, but they see that, wait a minute, that's why I'm feeling this way. And sometimes it's very sad because of what, they have come in contact with at a young age.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Nash, for your input and for the great work that you're doing as well. And you have a message in the chat from Danielle, and I just love it how you all are connecting because there's so much work to do, and there is some interconnectivity between the things that you do. That yeah, you all are a movement all in this little group right here to make some changes and make some things happen within your communities. And so thank you for sharing with us and for being patient with us. And
Not a problem.
your information is invaluable, and we certainly do appreciate your time tonight.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So, Brother Edward, I mean, this has been absolutely incredible. I'm going to bring Gwen back on. Gwen, it goes without saying, you've surrounded yourself with some incredible people.
Yeah. I can see this as the way things have grown out this evening and what information has been propagated, as you speak, across our airwaves. And this could be applicable to all, or I can ask this question to all of our guests. Do you think that this should be, at some point, part of a political platform for some politicians?
It is a part of a platform for politicians.
I mean, national, presidential election or, senatorial.
It has been a platform. You will see now that Biden has a big thing that he's doing with gun violence, and he focuses on gun violence because 79% of women or tragedies or fatalities in domestic violence is by gun. And so he has allotted I can't remember how many $1 billion to the reform of gun laws and different things like that. So there is money, there is a platform for it, and especially for domestic violence, because even here in Horry County, we have seen where we have had law enforcement and different officials killed, either answering a domestic violence clause or being abused.
Yeah, that's right.
So it is, and it's going to be a platform that I run in 2014. So y'all come on.
I heard that. I heard that. Speak it into existence. Exactly.
Speaking it into existence because we cannot, back to what everybody spoke about faith, I believe that God can't deliver what is covered. And so we have to pull back this thing on domestic violence. We have to pull back the resources there. We cannot keep pleading down the charges to assault so our county don't look like we have domestic violence. When I look at Horry County's J. Reuben Long's booking, every week there's 5 to 6 domestic violence arrests, but you don't see that in the numbers. As large as we are the third largest county in South Carolina, and we have no shelter. It's currently being a shelter built for DV victims. So there is a platform for political, law enforcement, and different things to bring awareness, and most of all, to clean our community up, to unite our community, save lives.
Mm-hmm. And that's really what it's all about, saving lives and making a difference in the lives of not only individuals but families. And I think you all are doing just that. By even you may think that your endeavors and your efforts are small, but they are, as a collective, you all are doing a mighty thing. And we just want to thank you, Gwen, for being here tonight, and for all of our wonderful guests, Kenneth Joyner, Dr. Deonza Nash, Rhonda Green, Tiffany Kinloch, and also Danielle Richardson. We appreciate all of you for being here. And what I'm doing now, Brother Edward, is posting their websites so that everyone who may have missed the website banners as we were putting them up, basically check out these following websites that you'll see as domestic violence awareness resources. And play this video back, share this video where it's posted on wcmagazine.net. And when you click on it, wcmagazine.net, it actually takes you to our YouTube page, and you can capture the link there and share that YouTube link to this broadcast. I'm sure there are tons of people who could use this information, if not to help themselves, to help others. And so, Gwen, you actually have an event coming up, and I wanted to definitely bring awareness to your event. So why don't you talk a little bit about this thing you're doing this weekend?
I'm doing exactly what you just said. What I did is I invited all these beautiful people in the cast, and I invited 30 other organizations and agencies, counselors, doctors, resources, everything, financial literacy, everything that I believe that somebody needs to leave a situation. And we do that every last Saturday of the year. This year it is on Saturday from 2 to 5 on the old courthouse lawn. It is a completely free event. We give out all the resources were set up and give you literature. We have the solicitor's office out there. We have the sheriff department out there. We have law enforcement city. We have Dr. Nash. We have another counselor out there. We have rape crisis, family justice. There is a lot of resources out there. There's Waccamaw ELC. There is ECHO out there. Anything that you need is out there. And it's also a free day of free fun, games, food, or whatever for the community to come out. And basically, Ebony Hope is to empower and inspire the community to learn about the resources and to utilize those resources. So come out on the 29th and get what you need. We will also be helping families with Christmas assistance. We will have household basket. Every child will get a free hat and glove. Food is free: hamburger, hot dog, nacho, hamburgers, cotton candy, all out there is free that day. It is a day that, we want to feed your mind, body, and spirit. Dr. Nash will be out there. Danielle will be out there. And just a lot of things just for the community to wrap its arms around each other and let them know our theme this year is You're Not Alone. And I think everybody here touched on this, from the host to the guests, that you are not out here alone. And, just come get the help. I don't want a person to feel how I feel, how my mom feel, or what Tiffany just said, or Danielle. I think we can come together and basically, please come out and get the help you need. And you can drive it.
Yeah. All right. Well, Brother Edward, it has been quite the broadcast tonight. And I think this is one of the deepest broadcasts we've had in a long time. And it's been a long time since we've had a 2-hour show, but it was worth it, worth every single second.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So again, thank you, Gwen. Peace and blessings to you, and much success to your 9th annual Domestic Violence Awareness Rally. Remember, everyone, it's Saturday, October 29th. That's this coming Saturday from 2 to 5 at the Horry County Old Courthouse. And as you can see, the flyer gives you the actual address for that. If you don't know, you should know if you're from Conway or Horry County at least. And again, we thank all of you for being here tonight and really appreciate you. We can't say that enough. So, Brother Edward, do you have any final words before we take it out?
I just hope that our viewing audience took an appreciation to what was spilled out here this evening on this matter, because it's a very, very serious issue that's been going on a long time. And each time we hear somebody about that, or is there some kind of forum, some new revelations that that gives you more energy to want to do things and help people like Ms. Reed and others and contribute. Okay, so if that trend continues, then we better start doing something right now, and to head this thing off. Because I know a couple of our guests mentioned the deaths that have occurred by way of domestic abuse, and I would say right off the bat that that's preventable. Okay, that's preventable. So I do want to, if you allow me, April, to kind of divert a little bit. I got an announcement I'd like to make to everybody about my brother BJ James McQueen. He's having this drive-by celebration birthday this Saturday coming at 3 o'clock. It's 77th birthday. I had to get there. And for those of you who, he has a lot of people, a lot of friends and so forth. So he thought that was a good idea. So he's going to be there sitting in his chair, and he might have some gifts in remittance to people. It's nothing but a cupcake, all right, to give away. but he's that type of guy. So he's going to, he'll be there, and he's celebrating his 77th and on Saturday at 3 p.m. at 1739 John Street. Just at the house.
All right.
The Homestead House. That's at the intersection of John Street and I don't know what the other street is, but look, everybody knows that they know him. I mean, they know where he lives.
Right.
Okay. So the other thing is that to make people keenly aware, and I think April, I talked to you about that much earlier about early voting has begun, and we are witnessing the gravity of the situation of the penny tax in Old Reed County. Okay, so I just want to get that out that this will impact the property taxes that we will have to pay if this doesn't go through. Okay, so we have to vote on this penny tax throughout this week and up until the 8th. Okay, so just keep that in mind, this thing. All right. So, you have anything else? So.
I do. We have a couple of shows already booked for November, and I know we're going to get that. We're going to have a show about the penny tax in November as well, right, Brother Edward? Are we going to work on something like that?
Yeah.
For November. But on the 1st, we're going to actually have a conversation with the new owner and executive director of the Prestige Montessori Method Academy. It's a new Montessori school that is opening in our area. And guess what? It is Black owned. And so we want to talk about education in a Montessori environment and what that means. It might be a great option for a lot of families who are looking for an alternative and or a different alternative as far as education is concerned for their youngsters. And so we'll have Lydia Anderson on for November the 1st to talk about Prestige Montessori Academy. And then on November the 8th, we will be talking with a special guest about the student loan debt relief program that has stalled out because South Carolina and 5 other states decided to band together, and a federal judge has blocked that relief effort by President Biden. And so that's going to be a very interesting conversation. The persons who will be with us on November the 8th will actually talk about the application that you should fill out if you're seeking student loan debt relief. And guess what? You should not be paying anybody to fill this application out. It literally takes less than 5 minutes, maybe even 3 minutes, maybe even 2 minutes to complete this application. So we want to talk about, the implications of the student loan debt relief. And I know there are people on both sides of the plank on this one right here, because some people are like, well, the debt shouldn't be dismissed or relieved, or if I had to pay for college, why would somebody else be entitled to relief? But I think that we all need to take a look at the fact that in these days and times, and with the way these debt relief systems are set up, pretty much you're in debt for life in a lot of instances, because the interest rates are out of bounds. The entire student loan structure needs an overhaul. And so there's so much that's underpinning this entire discussion. It goes without saying that, we really need to take care of home to make sure that people can get back on their feet and actually live viable lives and not have to worry about the fact that they're paying god-awful amounts in student loan payments each month, and at the expense of foregoing rent and other things, simply because they just can't afford it. The jobs are not there for the amount of student loan payments that you have to pay back. They're not making that kind of money on their jobs. And so there's a lot that's in that discussion, and we're going to have that discussion on November the 8th. Brother Edward, maybe we can squeeze in that penny tax discussion immediately after that. And believe it or not, we'll be getting close to Thanksgiving.
Absolutely.
In a minute. It's amazing. 2022 is almost out of here. But if you all have any topics that you would like for us to create discussions around, any special guests you think we can bring to the table to disseminate this great information, free 99, right, Brother Edward? Free 99.
You can bring them to the table, but not to eat turkey.
No. Why not? You don't like turkey?
Just bring them to the table. So,
just bring them to the table. I got you. Okay. All right. But
because it's free.
That's right. Free 99. Right. We give this information out for free. And if you will, please make sure that you take a look at our website. It's wcmagazine.net. If you're interested in advertising in the magazine, you can get in touch with us through the actual website, and also the full edition The e-copy of World Community Magazine is on the site at this time, and you can take a look at it. I mean, it's really homegrown. It's grassroots. It's a community magazine, and Brother Edward does a beautiful job of pulling together information and even topics like what we discussed tonight. You know, if any of our special guests want to contribute to the magazine in terms of articles or write-ups, we welcome you to do that. And so that's all I have for the evening, Brother Edward. And we have made it a lot. Yeah, we've got a lot going on. So yeah, this is community service. This is, you know, we're giving back in this special way.
And you conveyed it quite well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. That's why I'm your co-host.
So our viewers, thank you all so much for viewing in and giving us your time this evening. And we wanted to give you that information for your time of listening. Hopefully it's information that you can take and digest and help you to make informed decisions on many things. And this topic of domestic abuse is one that really requires information so that you people can make decisions now, especially after looking at what occurred tonight, you know, after the information that was broadcasted tonight. So again, thank you all so much, and see you next week. Godspeed.
Yes. And stay safe. And we'll see you soon.
See you.
All right.
Thank you for watching the World Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook with your host, Edward McQueen and April Garner.